Once upon a time, there lived a woman whose husband demanded something that shocked her to her bone. Her name was Ify, and he began one evening when she returned home from work exhausted to meet her husband, who informed her that he had something important to discuss with her. The whole day, Ify struggled with serious cramps and wanted only one thing: to reach home, take her pain medication, and sleep like a baby. But life has a way of placing drama on the table, right when you are too tired to even scream. Her husband called, his hands clasped, as if he was about to announce a court ruling. So he cleared his throat like a man who had practiced his speech. "I want us to try something different, something that will spice up our marriage," he said, as if looked at him, excited to hear what he had to say. Ka, without missing his words, revealed that he wanted an open marriage. "I want an open marriage," he said, as if her blinked slowly, thinking that she had misheard. "I want to see other women, and you are free to also see other men. Let's spice things up a little. It might just be what we need in our marriage," he said to Fair, who stared at him as if she was looking at a stranger, wearing her husband's face. The funniest part was that Kola spoken like he was doing her a favor, like he was giving her a gift. Her crown squeezed again as she felt anger right from her chest to her truth. She wanted to shout. She wanted to slap the table. She wanted to ask him if their marriage was now a joke. But then she remembered something. Men like Kola love drama because drama makes them feel important. So she swallowed the anger. First a small smile on her face, and agreed to his request. "Okay, if that's what you want, I agree," she said. Her response hit him like eyes. Kola had expected tears. He expected her to shout and beg him. He expected her to do what many women would do. But he first simply stood up, picked up a handbag, and walked into the bedroom without saying another word. Kola sat there in the living room, confused in his mind. Love must fight. Love must cry. Love must panic. Ify's calmness felt like a quiet slap to his face. That night, Kola did not sleep well. He kept listening for E to come out and start an argument, but she didn't. In the morning, she dressed for work, greeted him like a normal person, and left. That was when Ka's stomach began to turn. It was as if his plan was a match-sticky truck, expecting fire, but all he got was smoke. Kola was the kind of man who loved respect. He loved attention, and he loved the feeling of being desired. Ify, on the other hand, was quiet but not weak. For 5 years, she stayed faithful, not because she was blind, but because she kept hoping that her husband would finally grow up. She heard rumors, saw strange notifications on his phone. Notice how Kola would return home smelling of another woman's perfume. Each time her heart burned, but she swallowed it like hot tea, convincing herself that he would change. But Kola enjoyed the calmness. He mistook peace for permission and began to believe that Ify's patience was a sign that she would tolerate anything. Meanwhile, what he did not know was that Ify was slowly getting tired. She was tired of being treated like an afterthought, and that tiredness was about to become the doorway to a lesson that Kola would learn in a very hard way. That same day, Kola entered his office with the confidence of a man who believed he had finally gained control of his marriage. In his head, he was thinking, "Now I can do what I like and still go home to my wife." He did not know that the same mouth that he used to ask for freedom was the same man that will one day whisper in regret. But in that moment, pride had covered his eyes like a blindfold. Now, let us talk about the real person that planted this idea in Kola's head. Ivory. Ivory was Kola's colleague. Smart, sharp, and always looking like a woman that knows her what. But what many people did not understand was that Ivory was not attracted to Kola. She didn't hate him. She simply did not want him. Kola had been disturbing her for months, buying lunch, dropping compliments, sending late-night messages that pissed her off to her bones. Ivy tried to reject him politely, but Kola was a type that did not take no for an answer. So one afternoon, after Kola cornered her again, Ivory decided to use a trick. She said, "Kola, I'm not interested in being a secret though. If you want anything with me, go and tell your wife. If your wife approves, then we can talk." She said it with the confidence of someone who believed that this would scare him away. Because normally a man who wants to cheat wants it hidden. He wants it sweet and secret. And Ivory expected that Kola would disappear after hearing "tell your wife." Instead, Kola's eyes brightened as he assured her that her wish was his command. Ivory laughed inside. She thought he was joking, and that her plan would finally work. But what she did not know was that Ka went ahead to request for an open marriage. He came back to the office the next morning and revealed to Ivory that his wife had agreed to an open marriage. Ivory's heart sank. At first, she did not believe him, as she insisted on speaking to his wife to confirm, and Kola, without hesitation, called his wife, who confirmed that she was cool with the arrangement. Ivory stood there like a frozen mannequin. She could not believe her ears as Kola asked when he would take her out on a date. Ivory forced a polite laughter as she began to speak. Kola, it's not that simple. Kola frowned. Why? He said if my wife approves. Ivory nodded quickly. Yes, but you know I have promotional exams coming up. My head is not here. I need to focus. After the exams, we can revisit this conversation, she said to Kola, who agreed to give her a little time. He began to bring her gifts, and Ivory collected them without hesitation. However, she had no intention of ever being with Kola. In fact, Ivory was in a serious relationship with a man who was currently based abroad. She loved him so much and was not willing to leave him for a man who had the guts to tell his wife that he wanted to see other women. Ivory was not stupid. She was such a jealous lover who could not stand the thought of her man with another woman. So, she pitiated his wife, knowing that Kola was such a useless man to be with. A man who could throw away 5 years of marriage would one day toss her aside for his next adventure. So Ivory knew not to tread in such waters. However, back at home, he fell peacefully as if nothing had happened. She smiled and greeted him as she began to go out on dates. Kola had not seen her this happy in a very long time. In fact, he first smiled more now than when things were good with them. She was always on the phone, giggling and blushing like a teenager in love, and Ka could not stand it any longer. He confronted her one evening, asking why she was always excited. You see that man that is now deceiving you? Make sure you don't bring him into my house. So he said angrily, as if laughed in his face, and walked into her room. Ka could not contain his anger. The woman who made him open his marriage had not even given him the privilege of a date, whilst his wife here, who he believed would have a hard time finding a man, was going on dates back to back. He sat there furious as his wife walked out of her room dressed in a beautiful dress that was sure to make heads turn. He watched in total dismay as she walked out of the house and got into a very expensive car, one that all his life savings could not even afford. Kola could not believe his eyes. His wife was now having the time of her life, whilst he was here struggling to even secure a date with Ivory. Kola picked up his phone in that moment to call Ivory. The phone rang repeatedly, but Ivory refused to pick. So Kola called up his colleague Tundi, whose wife was sisters with Ivory. He decided to speak to Tundi, hoping that Tun's wife would help him convince Ivory to give him a chance. Kola explained all that happened to Tundi, how Ivory made him open up his marriage. He told Tundi that he loved Ivory with all of his heart, and Tundi asked if he was mad. How can you open up a marriage because of another woman? What exactly do you want, Kola? To marry my wife, sister? Do you think she's single, or that she will leave her serious man in her life just to be with you? You better wake up. Oh, wake up from your slumber and go apologize to your wife before it is too late. Ivory will never be with you, even if you pay her to. Her boyfriend lives in the UK and will be coming home soon to make this official. So you see that bubble that you're living in, pop it and return back to reality. He said to Ka, who began to narrate how he had ruined his marriage with his own hands. My wife now has a date. He said to Tundi, who opened his eyes in shock and asked what he was thinking when he decided to open his marriage. Have you seen your wife? That beauty that you married? Why would a man in his right senses agree to date her? She's every man's dream color. Beautiful, intelligent, and so hard-working. A woman who stayed when many would have left. And now that you gave her the permission to be free, you're surprised how other men are noticing her. Tunde said, his voice heavy with truth. Ka sat silently on the other end of the call, feeling the weight of every word land on his chest like stones. For the first time since he requested an open marriage, reality began to hit him like a wave. Kola remembered when he met his wife for the very first time. How she laughed easily. How she believed in him even when he had nothing. Remember the night she stayed up waiting for him. The meal she warmed up again and again. The quiet patience she wore like a second skin. And suddenly he realized something painful. He had not asked for an open marriage because he was unhappy. He asked for it because he was greedy. That night sat alone in the living room, staring at the door, waiting for A to return. When she finally walked in, her smile was soft, peaceful. Not the first smile of a woman pretending, but the calm smile of someone who had found herself again. She greeted him politely and walked towards the bedroom. I called softly as she paused and turned to him. "We need to talk," he said as if looked at him for a long moment. They sat opposite each other as silence stretched between them like a thin rope. "I made a mistake," Kola began. "I thought I wanted freedom, but I don't want freedom again. I don't want to know what it feels like." He fell. Listen quietly, her eyes steady. "I want us to close the marriage again," he said quickly. "Let's go back to how we be. I don't like this. I don't like seeing you with someone else." For the first time that night, he laughed. Not a joyful laughter, but one filled with irony. "You don't like it?" she asked softly, but he said it to spice things up. Kola lowered his head. "I was stupid," he admitted as if I leaned back gently and began to speak. "You see, Kola, when he asked for an open marriage, something inside me broke. Not loudly, not dramatically. He broke quietly." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "For 5 years, I watched you chase shadows outside, while I stayed inside, building a home alone." Her voice did not rise, but everyone carried weight. "When you gave me permission to see other men, you didn't realize that you are also giving me permission to see myself again." Kola swallowed hard as his heart began to race in a way that he could not explain. "So, are you seeing someone?" he asked as if I smiled faintly. "Yes," she said calmly. The word landed like thunder as Kole's chest began to tighten. "Who is he?" he asked as if I hesitated for a moment, then replied gently. "Someone who listens. Someone who doesn't treat me like an option. Someone who loves me the way that I should be loved," she said as she stood up and walked into her room. Silence filled the entire room as Kola felt jealousy rise inside of him. But this time he had no right to shout, no right to accuse, because Kola wrote the rules himself. So Kola decided to beat her in her own game. He asked several women out, but rejection began to follow him like a stubborn shadow. Some laughed and revealed that they were in a serious relationship, whilst others did not even bother to reply his messages. Each refuser bruised his ego more than he could admit, until one afternoon when he met a woman whose name was Clara. Clara was lively, outspoken, and curious about his situation. Unlike Ivory, she did not run away from the drama. When Kola explained that his marriage was now open, Clara tilted her head thoughtfully. "You mean your wife agreed to it?" "Yes," Kola replied quickly as he revealed to her that his wife was even seeing someone as they spoke. Clara could not believe her ears. She agreed to date him on the condition that she lives in his house with him, and Ka did not dispute it. If anything, he was happy with the arrangement, knowing that Clara's presence would make his wife jealous and uncomfortable. So Kola moved Clara into their home, even picked their master's bedroom, knowing that will be so livid to see another woman on their matrimonial bed. He waited patiently for her to return as he occupied himself with his new woman. Hours later, Ife returned home and met Clara. Instead of feeling jealous, she smiled at her and introduced herself as Ife. "If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask," she said to Clara, who stood there shocked as she watched Ife walk into the master's bedroom and packed up her things. Ife moved into the guest room as she locked herself up and began to mind her business. Kola was so worried. He expected her to react differently and not to embrace his new woman as if what he was doing was normal. Kola was more focused on making her jealous that he did not even notice the quiet ship happening inside his own home. He laughed loudly with Clara in the living room, intentionally raising his voice whenever Ife walked past. He held Clara's hand in ways that felt forced, always glancing sideways to check if Ife was watching, whilst he remained calm as she focused on her own life. Her birthday finally arrived, and Kai, instead of buying her a gift, bought things for his new woman. He kept the items where Ife would see to provoke a reaction, but effed in a way that he did not expect. She returned home that evening in a brand new car that still had a red ribbon on it. If brought in a cake that she handed to Kola. She looked him straight in the eyes and thanked him for opening their marriage. She thanked him for allowing her meet the love of her life as she wished him well with Clara. She revealed to him that her family would return her bride price, as Cola never made their marriage legal. He only married her traditionally because he knew that this would avail him the opportunity of marrying other women. Cola refused on several occasions to marry her legally. At the time, he always had an excuse that he used to justify his actions. "It's just paper," he would say. "Why rush? We are already husband and wife. Why make it legal? We are married." But now, standing across from her, he realized that the same decision he once used to control her had quietly removed his power to hold her back. "What are you saying, Ifer?" Caller asked, his voice cracking as if it took a slow breath. "I'm saying thank you, because if you had not opened this marriage, I might have stayed here forever, hoping for crumbs." Clara stood by the doorway, frozen, watching a scene that she no longer understood. Cola forced the laughter. "You're joking, right? This is just one of your calm acts," shook her head slowly. "No, I'm serious," she said as she reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. Inside was her wedding invitation, as well as a letter from her family, confirming that her bride price will be returned in accordance with tradition. Caller's hands began to tremble. "You can't just walk away," he said weakly. "Remember all we share. Remember how much you love me and all the things that we plan to do in the future," he said to who smiled and revealed to him that she had already walked away the moment he opened their marriage. Silence swallowed the entire room as Kai in that moment knew that he had lost his wife for all these months. He believed that he could live without her. He craved the company of other women and didn't mind what this would do to his wife. Kai felt something collapsed inside his chest. He remembered the expensive car she arrived in. He remembered how she laughed on the phone. All the signs had been there. "Ifer, you can't marry another man. I am your husband," he said to Ifer, who corrected him that he was her husband, but not anymore. "My introduction ceremony is next month, and I hope you find the time to attend," she said as she walked into the house and packed up her bags. Ifer walked out of the house like a queen. She was done with being trampled upon by a man who had no ATM of respect for her. A man who believed that she could be replaced and didn't even hesitate to do so at the slightest convenience. Cola stood by the doorway, watching like a man whose own life had suddenly become a movie he could no longer control. Please, we can fix this. I made a mistake," he said as if looked at him in the eyes and began to speak. "You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice, and I have finally made mine." If looked at him, not with anger, but with the kind of calm that comes when a decision had already been made. She got into her car and drove away, leaving behind the drama that had once been her life. Cola could not believe that she was gone. He stood there hopeless as Clara tried to convince him that she was there for him. But Cola yelled at her angrily as he sent her out of his house. "You caused this," he said repeatedly as he blamed Clara for all that had happened. "If only you stayed away," he said as Clara, now filled with rage, revealed to him that he was the genesis of his own problem. "It seems convenient for you to blame me for your own stupidity. Cola, you had a good woman in your life, but your foolishness led you to believe that you would find better outside. I only followed you because I had nowhere to stay. My boyfriend pushed me out of the house because of a misunderstanding." She picked up her bag slowly as she said her final words to him. "You didn't lose your wife because of me. You lost her because you stopped valuing her long before I even walked into this house." The words hung heavy in the air. Cola opened his mouth to argue, but nothing came out. For the first time, he saw himself clearly, not as a victim, but as a man who had burned his own house and was now angry at the ashes. Cola sat alone in his misery as reality came crashing down at him. He stared at the wedding card again and realized that Faye was marrying the only son of a popular Oi tycoon, one of the most eligible bachelors in the country. The laughter he once ignored now echoed only in his memory as she realized that Ifer had not found wealth alone. She had found peace, something he had traded away for pride. If found love with a man who was a complete opposite of her ex-husband, a man who put her needs above his and treated her like the queen that she was. She lived the remaining of her life grateful to Ka for all that he did to her, because his actions finally led her to her happiness. The lesson to be learned from this story is that sometimes the greatest betrayal is not cheating, but taking a loyal heart for granted. Cola learned too late that respect is the foundation of love, and that freedom given selfishly can become the very door through which happiness walks away. A fair story teaches that silence is not weakness. Patience has limits, and a person who is constantly undervalued will eventually choose themselves. Because when love is treated like an option, one day it will find a place where it is treated like a priority, and by then regret becomes the only companion left behind. I hope you